It is 7,000 tons of iron. It stands 1,000 feet tall. It is the most recognizable symbol of France, perhaps the most recognizable monument on Earth. Imagine someone walking up to you and offering to sell it to you. Not a souvenir, not a postcard, the actual tower. You'd laugh, right? You'd call the police. You'd think they were insane. But in 1925, a wealthy scrap metal dealer didn't laugh. He listened, he signed a check, and he handed over a suitcase full of cash to buy the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal. And the man who sold it to him? He didn't just get away with it, he was so successful that a month later, he went back and sold it again. Welcome to the story of Count Victor Lustig. Today, we are not just looking at a crime, we are looking at the psychology of greed. We're going to dissect how a single man exploited the economic desperation of a nation to pull off one of the greatest scams in financial history. This is Money Stories. Let's break it down. To understand the con, you have to understand the economy. Scams don't work in a vacuum, they thrive in chaos. The year is 1925. Paris is recovering from the devastation of World War I. The Roaring Twenties were happening in America, but in France, the reality was grimmer. The franc was fluctuating, the government was drowning in debt, and the public was cynical. And then there was the tower itself. Today, it is a beloved icon. But in 1925, it was a rusting eyesore. Remember, it was built for the 1889 World's Fair and was only supposed to stand for 20 years. By the mid-20s, it was decaying. Maintenance costs were skyrocketing. There were actual serious debates in the Paris newspapers about whether the government should just tear the whole thing down to save money. Enter Victor Lustig. He wasn't a thug, he was a gentleman. He spoke 5 languages fluently, he dressed impeccably, he was sitting in a cafe, reading a headline about the high cost of maintaining the tower. Most people saw a news story. Lustig saw an asset class. He realized that in an economy where nothing made sense, the impossible could become plausible. Lustig hired a forger to create official government stationery from the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. He then sent confidential invitations to the top 5 scrap metal dealers in Paris. He did not meet them in a dark alley. He invited them to the Hôtel des Crayons, the most luxurious, prestigious hotel in the city. This is the first rule of high-level financial fraud. Presentation is liquidity. Lustig gathered these businessmen and dropped his voice to a whisper. He told them the government was broke, which was true. He told them the maintenance costs were unsustainable, which was true. And then he told the lie wrapped in the truth. The government had decided, in secret, to sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal. He told them it had to be a secret auction to avoid public outcry. He appealed to their ego. They were not just buying metal, they were helping the French economy. But Lustig wasn't looking for the smartest man in the room. He was looking for the hungriest. Enter André Poisson. He was new to the Paris business scene. He was insecure. He wanted to break into the inner circle of French industry. Buying the Eiffel Tower would put him on the map. Poisson took the bait. But then, and this is the genius part, his wife got suspicious. She asked the obvious questions. Why is everything so secretive? Why is this official meeting happening in a hotel room and not a government ministry? Poisson started to back out. The deal was about to collapse. Most criminals would have run. Lustig? He used a tactic that we see in modern corruption scandals all the time. He played the corruption card. Lustig met with Poisson alone. He confessed. He said, Mr. Poisson, you serve as a man of the world. You know that government salaries are modest. I need to ensure my future. He wasn't asking for the sale price anymore. He was asking for a bribe. This is brilliant psychology. By admitting to a small crime, soliciting a bribe, he proved he was a real government official. Because in Poisson's mind, honest officials didn't exist, but corrupt ones were everywhere. Poisson was relieved. He paid the bribe, and he paid the massive sum for the tower. Lustig took the cash, handed over a worthless piece of paper, and took the next train to Vienna. Lustig waited in Vienna for the news to break. He checked the papers every day, waiting for the scandal. But it never came. Why? Because André Poisson was too embarrassed to go to the police. He had been scammed so thoroughly, his ego couldn't take the public humiliation. He swallowed the loss and kept his mouth shut. So, what did Lustig do? He went back to Paris. 1 month later, he invited 5 new scrap metal dealers to the same hotel and tried to sell the tower again. But this time, one of the dealers went to the police. Lustig caught wind of it and fled to America before they could arrest him. He spent the rest of his life pulling scams in the United States, including tricking Al Capone before finally dying in Alcatraz. But nothing ever topped the tower. It is easy to look back at 1925 and laugh at André Poisson. How could he be so stupid? But let me ask you this. When you see a cryptocurrency with no utility soar 10,000% in a week, isn't that just selling air? When you see companies with zero revenue valued at billions because of a story about the future, isn't that the Eiffel Tower? Lustig's method is the blueprint for every modern financial bubble. 1. Create urgency. Get in now before the public knows. 2. Use authority. Institutional investors are buying. 3. Exploit insecurity. Don't you want to be part of the elite? André Poisson didn't buy iron. He bought a story. He bought the idea that he knew something others didn't. The Eiffel Tower is still standing. It was never sold. But the Lustigs of the world are still out there, and they are still selling. The only difference is, today, they don't use hotel rooms in Paris. They use Discord channels, polished pitch decks, and financial news networks. History doesn't repeat, but the scams certainly rhyme. If you want to understand how the world's wealth is really moved often by tricks just like this, make sure you subscribe to Money Stories. I'll see you in the next chapter of the history they didn't teach you in school.